All right, welcome to our explainer. Today we're jumping into a really deep question from a spiritual point of view. For anyone who's serious about self-cultivation, why is being a vegetarian seen as, well, non-negotiable?
So, quick question for you. When you hear the word vegetarian, what's the very first thing that pops into your head? For most of us, I'm betting it's something about food, right? Salads, tofu, maybe a mental list of all the things you can't eat.
And yeah, that's the standard take. It's usually framed as a diet, a choice defined by what's missing from the plate. It's all about subtraction.
But what if we just flip that whole idea on its head? In the spiritual tradition we're diving into today, vegetarianism isn't about restriction at all. It's about restoration. It's not about what you lose from your diet, but about what you regain in your spirit. Okay, so let's really get into this. To wrap our heads around this perspective, we have to look way beyond the plate and into the philosophy that's driving it.
The whole thing really centers on this concept of ji, which means purity. But as you can see, we're not just talking about eating pure food. It's a much bigger idea, a kind of holistic purity that covers three key areas: your body, your speech, and your mind. The whole package.
So, if the whole practice is about reaching a state of purity, what's the end game? Well, it's all about getting back to something fundamental, something we were all born with but might have lost along the way. The core belief here is that every single person has this perfect, built-in spiritual essence. You can call it your original nature or original divine radiance. Just think of it like a pure, brilliant light that is your true self. And this original nature isn't just some vague, empty light. Nope. It's made of 5 fundamental virtues. These are the pillars of who we really are: compassion, conscience, ethics, wisdom, and truthfulness. You could almost call it our spiritual factory settings. Okay, now here is the absolute crucial point. The source we're looking at argues that eating meat isn't just a dietary choice. It's an act that slowly but surely chips away at each of these 5 core virtues, dimming that original light inside us. Let's break down how. First up is compassion. The argument here is that it's the most immediate casualty of a meat-based diet. It suggests that real compassion means we have to feel for another living being. And to eat meat, we pretty much have to switch that feeling off. This ancient quote from the philosopher Mencius just nails it. He's saying that when we actually see an animal living, when we hear it, a natural compassionate feeling kicks in. And to eat its flesh, you have to consciously sever that connection, to kind of harden your heart against that natural instinct. Second, we lose our conscience. I mean, animals, just like us, have families, they have bonds. A tiger doesn't eat its own cub, right? So the argument goes that when we willingly participate in breaking up these animal families for food, we're actually dulling our own inner compass of right and wrong. The third virtue lost is ethics, which is all about respect and doing the right thing, especially when it comes to the divine. The text points out this really powerful contradiction: people offering meat to deities who are themselves vegetarian, like the Bodhisattva Guanyin. This is seen as a huge misunderstanding of what is sacred, a real breach of ethics. Fourth on the list is a loss of wisdom. And this is shown through a kind of endless cycle of blame, where nobody wants to take responsibility for the act of killing an animal for food. And what's so interesting here is how it breaks down this flawed logic. The consumer points the finger at the butcher, and the butcher points right back at the consumer. It's a perfect loop where everyone passes the buck. This refusal to see the direct link between our actions and their consequences is considered a really profound loss of wisdom. And finally, we have the loss of truthfulness. This is about all the deception involved in the whole process, using traps to trick animals or using hormones to make them grow unnaturally fast just for profit. These acts are seen as a fundamental violation of honesty towards other living things. So, the argument is pretty clear. Eating meat harms our inner virtues. But the consequences don't just stop there. They ripple outward into the universal law of cause and effect, what most of us know as karma. According to the Buddha, taking a life creates the single biggest karmic debt you can have. Life is precious to every being, and when you take it, a debt is created. And according to this universal law, that's a debt that one day has to be repaid. And this just creates a relentless cycle. A life is taken, a debt is made, and eventually that debt gets collected, often with one's own life. This eye for an eye dynamic just keeps a cycle of violence and suffering going forever. So to be a vegetarian, from this viewpoint, is to consciously say, I'm stepping out of this cycle. I'm done. So if that's the problem, what's the solution? The specific practice for cultivators is called King Ko,
and it lays out a really clear path forward. Qingkou literally translates to pure mouth, and this is brilliant because the term has a double meaning. It's not just about what you put into your mouth, it's also about what comes out of it. And here are the 2 steps. First is purity in. This means no meat, obviously, but also avoiding what are called the 5 pungent plants, things like onions and garlic, which are believed to stir up passions like anger and desire. And second, you have purity out. This is all about your speech. No lying, no gossip, no harsh words. It's a complete purification of the mouth, inside and out. And this all brings us to a really powerful final metaphor. The source says that trying to do good deeds and build spiritual merit while you're still eating meat is like trying to fill a cup that has a hole in the bottom. You can keep pouring goodness in all day long, but it's just constantly draining right out. Which leaves us with this final question to think about. According to this spiritual path, the act of taking life is the leak. So if your ultimate goal is to be spiritually full and to restore that original nature, well, the first and most important step seems to be fixing that leak. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.